Okay, so what I'll get started with is sort of just jump right in to show you an example, because I think that that will be the easiest way to kind of get into it. And the reason I started doing graphic syllabi was I saw something that someone I follow on Twitter was doing with graphic syllabi, and she's published her work. The last name is Carr. So I had all this laid out with links and everything, and it's all in the other office. So um, with no camera. So I can certainly post follow up, put some links there for folks to look at. And that got me thinking about it. And I'm in the same boat as I think it was Julie who said that no one was reading your syllabus. And this is what I found. I mean, in general, I like to keep the syllabus short because I know some people really give almost like a booklet, right, where they list all of the course objectives and so forth. And some of the recommendations that we get is to do that sort of thing. So I'm not necessarily saying that isn't something to do. It's not something that I do, but I think it's worth having maybe in addition to that, or instead of that, to have something really short that just captures the essence of what they need to know in the course. So the first graphical syllabus that I made was for an intro chem course. So this is a large course, service course, has, I don't know, 100, 200 students in it, depending on the section. And these are students who are, when I teach it in kind of the off semester, the winter term, there are some students straight out of high school, but typically they've been at MUN for at least the semester. Some of them might have taken the course before and are repeating it to do better. Some are international students who didn't arrive in the fall semester as they intended, and so they're taking it sort of in the wrong semester. And some are students coming back to do this one course for a different program that they're taking. So that's the kind of population I'm dealing with. And really, there's a lot going on. There's labs, there's the classes. We were remote at the time. There's assignments and all this sort of thing going on. And it's a lot of information to convey. And so I thought if I can really simplify it, that might help. This simplification process also went along with my evolution in ungrading that Stacy mentioned. So in trying to simplify my grading scheme, I'm also going through the course and saying what matters, what doesn't. And that really helped me to simplify the overall course layout, which then makes it easier to share. So what I will do now is share my window. Here we go. All right, so I will make this. So I'll show you first just that overview, and I'll zoom in then so you can see. So this is what it looks like. It's just all on one page. It's colorful. I like colors, but I'm not good at colors. And so what I did was I picked things and I ran all the colors through. There's a few websites that will do that, that will check for contrasting colors to make sure that the colors will look distinguishable regardless of the type of vision, including with color vision deficiencies. So this is how I set it up. And in coming up with a graphical syllabus, and I had to think about colors, and I wanted to keep the color scheme as simple as possible, that also made me simplify how the course was structured. So really coming up with this graphical syllabus had big impacts on how the course ran, which I think was very valuable. It also made me really think what actually matters, what really matters in terms of, in addition to the facts, what kind of an impression do I want to give to the students, right? What do I want the feel to be? Now, I did get, I'll tell you right off the bat, I did get some feedback on the graphical syllabus from students. I was surprised at how many of them said, oh, I love your syllabus, which I know I've never heard that before. So they liked it. They responded to it. Now, I never asked them all to tell me thumbs up or thumbs down, but it was enough of a positive that they actually took the time to send me a message and tell me. Because again, we were remote. They weren't, we weren't talking in person. We weren't casually meeting in class. So everything was, a little bit different with her interactions. So now what I'll do is I will fit to width. Okay, so one area that is, important to put in the syllabus is just how to contact you, right? So I have that up front, and I find that icons are really useful for students to pick out information. And for those who know me, the icons don't always make sense to me. Like I'm very text-based. I don't always recognize what these little pictures are supposed to say. So I had to really look around to see what do other people think is like a normal representation for an email or a phone or what have you. And there are banks of these images available in as fonts or as small images you can import, depending on what you're using to build up your template. So that's what I had at the beginning. And yeah, those icons seem to help. And again, I really had to narrow down what I was going to say so that it would really have an impact. And so something that I really wanted to emphasize as well is that the textbook is free and integrated into the course shell. So they don't have to buy a textbook. I wanted that to be upfront because it's different than other sections of the intro chem class. I wanted to make sure that was upfront. And I felt like that was also a way to put my values upfront. Also with this little circle here, all are welcome. That was big and bold, and then I could put some details here to the right. So these are shorter versions. You belong in this class. You have a right to accommodations. These are very, very short blurbs representing what in my syllabus used to be a whole paragraph about this is what you need to do for accommodations, all that sort of thing. And I found that I worried at first I was leaving out important things, like I don't have a link to the Blended Center here. Is that a problem, right? But what I found was that I can have that information elsewhere, and then this is just the one sheet that they can go to and look for stuff. And this is, again, that first impression. Then the calendar. This is something else that's so this is down the right-hand side. Now I should check in and say, can people see what I'm sharing? Do you want me to make it bigger?
We can see it.
Okay,
quite
perfect.
well.
Okay, yeah, and I'm seeing in the comments, thank you. Yeah, no, I was really quite pleased with how it came out because I'm really not a very, I'm sort of black and white text kind of person, and so yeah, so this was really fun and a bit nerve-wracking to put together. But yes, so the calendar I found was really important as well to kind of link how different pieces fit together, especially the class and the lab and the key dates. Now, unfortunately, with all the chaos of the winter semester, we didn't actually know when labs were going to be due, but those would have been in this timeline, right? And having it color coded. And that way they can see the whole semester right there. I use the calendar tool in Brightspace. I show them how to link it to their calendar. They don't always do this, right? So this is, again, the calendar. And then the grading scheme. I think that's a really, really important thing as well. And this is where I say I really simplified my course structure. I did this partly through COVID. The first time we could, I was teaching remotely. We made a lot of changes in how we deliver courses. So having that grading scheme right there as one key element. And again, having these icons saying it's open book, you can do it oral or written, it's untimed, really put that right up front. I didn't have as many questions about is the test open book or can I get extra time or that sort of thing. Then I had some explanations about optional assignments because that was something that's quite different than they wouldn't have seen in other courses. I pointed them to online resources that were to basically say, go look at the Brightspace page to find these types of things. So you'll find readings with audio and video. And I don't have a link there. They know where Brightspace is, and that seemed to work okay. Then this is another key thing. Use the learning guides, use the office hours. And I found that by having them all as the same sized object, that they could see them all as equivalent options. So the learning guides that I have on Brightspace, that's just as useful potentially as office hours or the help center. Those are all valid ways of interacting with the course, and they're all equally accessible. For office hours, I defined office hours, and now I've changed it to I think student hours was something I've been using more recently, and then there's another term I heard recently. What do you all use for office hours? What do you call them? Or what have you heard other people call them? And you can just unmute and speak or type in the chat. Still use office hours. And for some students okay, you've only ever heard office hours. Yeah, so some people are finding that students didn't know what that was. Maybe that was when we were in our office and they shouldn't bother us, right? So yeah, so I've heard them called student hours, and I'm trying to remember now the other phrase that I heard, open time for students or something like that. So basically an unscheduled thing where they can just drop in. Maybe that's what it was, drop-in hours. Okay, and then we had to put in instructional continuity in our syllabi, and so I put those things in there, but again, very brief. There are other things that we're required to put in our syllabus, like for example, we're supposed to include the blurb from the calendar about plagiarism, or I guess at least link to it. I intentionally left that out. I find it a very harsh and scary wording. Drop-in hours, yes, thanks, Chris. I'm going back and forth with the chat. Yes, so so having that in there, I find can be a little bit. It can kind of set the wrong tone. So I usually put it sort of at the very end somewhere in quotes, so it's clearly quoted from somewhere else, and I word it in different ways, but I didn't include that at all on here intentionally. So again, this doesn't necessarily replace the syllabus that we're required to put together. That can be some other document you have online or whatever, but this was really like the go-to handout for them. What else? Originally, I was going to have on the back of the sheet all the units laid out. So I have here 6 different units, units 0 through 5, and I was going to have short summaries of them, but I realized who's going to read that? Again, it just came back to why are they going to look there? They can actually see the material instead of reading about the material in the Brightspace. So that was my general approach there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, really interesting stuff from the chat. Oh, I guess I should read it. This is going to be recorded. So Julie says, I like student hours. Jacita said, I heard of students assuming office hours was when the instructor was unavailable to students. Yeah, exactly. From Stacy, if it's not explained, that makes sense. Victoria says, interesting. I can totally see that perspective. And Stacy says, so much thought and careful choices were made when creating this resource. So well done. Yeah, and by changing the format so radically, it really made me think about what I was including in my syllabus, right? If you have any other questions about what I've said so far, we can go through those, or comments or suggestions, and then we can move to the next thing. So, okay, so Julie asks, is it possible to set up this graphic syllabus as a landing page in our Brightspace page? It's a great navigation tool for students. And Stacy says that's possible. Well, that's a really interesting point, because one thing that I also found, I took an online course with a different LMS last fall, I think it was, Coursera. I think it was it? Canvas. Anyway, I couldn't find anything. I found it so hard to navigate, and I realized, oh, this is what our students are facing. And I think I'm laying out my Brightspace page really clearly, but it's not at all clear to someone who's not familiar with that. So I would leave that navbar in place, but yes, you can. Yeah, so there's certain features with Brightspace that really allow the students to navigate from one course to another and so forth. But yeah, what do we do about the landing page? And so I actually asked students to sketch out what they thought would be a nice like what would make sense for them to see when they go to the course page. What do they want to see? And the most common one was just to have essentially a block that says unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 4, and they can just click on that and go into the unit. And that's what they want to see on the front page. They don't know where to find it. You know, I show them content and so forth, but somehow that doesn't click with them. And I thought, sure, why not? So yeah, so I think that would be really interesting to make this essentially like the landing page. And I think you can do that by making different widgets. For the front page, you can make your own widgets, but I would say probably best practice would be to go to folks at CITL and say, okay, what would be the most accessible and integrated way to do this, to make sure that the students can still use all of the features to navigate the space. But yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so you can email tlx@mun.ca, says Justina, and please reach out. We'd be happy to help you. And I'm sure you all know how helpful folks at CITL are. And so, yeah, that would be great. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got a quick question, but it's completely logistics based. Did you get any pushback from anyone? Like, I know we were supposed to have printed copies at some point, and then if some of that information is appearing in multiple places, my takeaway is the students don't know where to find it anyway, so it probably doesn't matter that way. But have you encountered any challenges that way?
Right. No, I haven't. And part of that was starting this during COVID where everything was up in the air. And now this notion of you have to provide it in a printed copy is no longer applicable. So now the regulations state that we have to make it available to students through the LMS or handouts in class. I think those are the options given. So we don't actually have to provide printouts anymore. And I guess related to the logistics, yes, Jane says, oh, welcome, Jane. Jane says you don't need printed copies. In terms of logistics, I also was concerned about making something in color that people are then going to print in black and white. And especially with this light blue background, I thought, is this going to be a real mistake? But it looked better than with the white. And again, running it through the contrast checkers for different colors to make sure that it is distinguishable and has contrast for any type of vision really helped. And also something that can help with that as well, just sort of a shortcut. If you print to grayscale or to black and white, can you still see the different colors with different levels of gray? And that's usually a good check for visibility as well. But yeah, I thought, what if someone actually has to print this on a color printer and it uses up all their ink, right? I mean, I don't know if that's still an issue anymore, but it's still something I think about. So yes, I was concerned about that as well. But yeah, the other aspect in terms of pushback of not including all the details that we're supposed to include, I had those elsewhere on the LMS. And I haven't gotten any pushback from that. And I do usually have folks eyeing what I do very closely. And so I think if there would be pushback, I would have gotten that already. There's always someone looking to point out that what I'm doing is wrong. So I think I would have heard about that. But yeah, I follow the letter of the law in the sense of having that information, like for example, the quote on plagiarism in my material somewhere, even though what I say in my handout is a little bit different. In sort of the traditional handout, I have a statement there about using and developing your own voice, and really a more practical way to say don't copy. It's really, I have found that it's really more about getting students to trust that they do have a voice, that they can use that voice, that they can develop their own style. Because initially, yeah, it's hard to imagine when you're just starting out in a field that you have anything new to say. Like, how could you say it better than what someone has already written who's an expert, right? So yeah, so that's what I do. But yeah, again, I haven't gotten any pushback on that.
That's good.
Yes, it was a relief. I was bracing myself. Okay, so then let's see. So I should probably check who else has joined. So we have Jane and Robin. I'm going to stop sharing now. And I'm happy to send this to you. I think there's also a copy of it on the CITL page. Yeah, so maybe we can do a couple more quick introductions before we move to the next part. So Jane and or Robin, you can put into the chat, or you can just say what sort of courses you teach.
Hello, this is Robin. I'm from the Faculty of Nursing, and I teach both undergraduate and graduate programs, professional development, statistics, that sort of thing. And so I'm really fascinated by this type of presentation for the syllabus, because I feel that they are just growing in size. And so I think this is a really friendly version for students to uptake the material. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Robin. And Jane is a senior instructional designer. Some of you may know her name. Again, an excellent resource for everything, and with the technical side of things as well. So yeah, and Jane works with different faculty and instructors with all kinds of courses across campus. She puts in the chat. Yeah, and then other folks that are here are doing a range of courses in a range of departments. I've forgotten physics, English, I've forgotten now, but anyway, a lot of different areas. So yeah, so what I'd like to do now is get a sense for, and you can unmute or type in the chat as you wish. Stacy says, I love the point you made where you said that you included all the most important points in the graphic syllabus, but also ensured the rest follow-up information was still available, accessible in the course Brightspace shell. Yes, and the suggestion that someone made about using this essentially as a landing page in Brightspace, I think would be a really great way to really integrate those links. So if you click on the course breakdown, that I have there as a little wheel, maybe that could take you to the grade page or to a content page that lays out more information on there. Another thing that I was concerned about for logistics and for accessibility as well was how legible is this going to be? Is it too distracting, too many colors? And I didn't pull these questions specifically. I didn't receive any student complaints about that. And I guess they did have the other format that I'm more used to, which is just, you know, text on a page available. Okay, so I'd like at this point, we can actually just kind of get down to work to actually put some time into seeing what we could develop for our own courses. So I'd like to get a sense for right now what your syllabus or handout looks like. How many pages? Have any of you done some kind of a graphic syllabus? Okay, no graphic syllabus. And so for that upper level physics lab course, what do you have as a handout?
Yeah, the really boring one.
Okay, how many pages does it take?
I have pared it down immensely. So when I inherited it, it was about 8 or 9 pages long. I think I have it down to 2.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so you're already in the right direction. And Julie has no traditional syllabus at all, just the Brightspace pages. And how much do you split it up in Brightspace? So do you have it all on one content page? Is it split over several content pages?
So I have the landing page and then the content pages where I have a course evaluation piece, maybe a course overview that has the traditional outcomes and course materials and that type of thing. So it's in a couple of key sections, and then you have course modules. So I try to organize it, but I know it becomes overwhelming to navigate, especially when you go down one rabbit hole in one section and you can't always find your way back out.
Right.
So I really like this idea of a graphical syllabus that could be kind of your landing page to take you to these other spaces.
Right, okay. And Victoria says she keeps it to 2 pages, but when she had to add the additional instructional continuity information during COVID, it was hard to keep it at 2 pages, yeah. And Jane has this perspective really from the whole university. Syllabi tend to be 3 to 8 pages, depending on how much detail there is, yeah. So I think that we really can pare things down if we want to and if we think it would be useful. So I think in terms of, I'll put my example up again. I'll share that again. And I'll share it large. Let's see. Fit visible. So you can kind of see the overall kind of layout of the way I've done it. And for a course you're teaching now or a course you're teaching in winter, just grab a piece of paper or your electronic device or whatever and kind of lay it out in blocks. What would you do with one page? What would you do with that real estate on that page? What sort of things do you want there? The way I started with this was on paper. And then I also had a template that I used. It was actually from a graphical CV/resume that someone had posted using LaTeX and using Tix, which is a way to kind of draw objects in there. So that's how I started. There are templates out there for this sort of thing. But yeah, depending on how you usually do your workflow, you know, sketch out how would you use this real estate, and then we can share what we have either by holding our paper up to the camera, or you can share your screen, or you can I can put up a whiteboard that we can sketch on. So I'll just give you a minute to do that. I will grab a piece of paper myself. Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen, and then that will enable us to share our own screens. So, okay, and some questions. Do you happen to have this as an overleaf template? I do. So if anyone wants the tech file, if you use LaTeX or if you use overleaf, I will send it to. Actually, I'll just share it with you. So I'll add you as a, I don't know, shared person. And yes, the link that Stacy put up there shows let's see, yes, has some links there for examples of graphical syllabi. So what program do I use? Yeah, like I said, I start paper and pencil, and then yeah, I found this template and just put it in there. One thing that I like about the template is it focuses on structure, and so it requires you to put your content into, decide what content goes where by assigning it to a particular structure, as opposed to just kind of writing it in there and stretching it, you know, stretching a text box to make it fit or whatever. Yes, perfect. Okay, thanks, Justina. Yeah, I'll send that to you. Okay, so does anyone want to share what they've sketched out or what they're thinking about? You can either just go to the bottom and say share content, or you can turn on your video and hold up the paper. Or you can let me know. I don't know if you can start a whiteboard yourself, but I can start a whiteboard for you.
So I have a cheater thing, which is not my syllabus, but I was looking at other templates, and what I found was something sort of in between that was a little easier for me to manage. So I can share that screen potentially.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Sorry, too many windows.
I know the feeling.
Let's try this.
Nice. Okay.
So this looked much nicer than the one I was already using. And so what drew my attention here was that it would force me to pare down a little bit more. And I thought that this might even be an intermediate stage before getting to a graphical syllabus. And the thing is, for the course that I teach, it's there's sort of simple projects, and the material floats. So it's more like saying that students will do 5 of these selected projects. And so it's not maybe even necessary to have a little wheel in the center to show the breakdown. But what I did like about it, and I'll just sort of scroll slowly so nobody gets too motion sick, that there's ways that you could provide detail, but also sort of the highlights on the side. And this particular one is like a two-page option. And it had a lot of things that I think should go in a thesis or a syllabus, excuse me. So that seemed to be a reasonable starting point to help push me in the right direction. But it doesn't look as clean, that's for sure. Lots of words.
But yeah, really nice the way it's laid out with, again, on the left-hand side. Sometimes that's called a gutter, and it can be a problem to kind of, when you're laying something out graphically, a page in a newspaper or magazine or something like that, it can be a problem if you just pull people down the left-hand side. In a document like this, that's actually really useful to just say, okay, here are the key aspects. And then on the right-hand side, a few more text. But yeah, if you scroll up a little bit, then to the first page, yeah, even if they don't read the stuff on the right-hand side, they can still get the highlights on the left. Just right away looking at it, who's the professor and so forth. Also, I like that there's a bit of personality in this as well. Again, something that I really struggle with doing, but that I think students really appreciate. Like, for example, on the next page at upper left, it's facts. What is a fish? No clue, right? So that's something that really jumped out at me. It's like, okay, it gives me a sense for what this course is going to be like, right? So yeah, so I like those features. Excellent. And if you can, I don't know if you have an easy a way to provide a link for that template.
Yes,
I'd like the overleaf link or something.
Yes, I can.
Fish equals cod. Yeah, exactly. Is there any other fish?
Yeah, I will stop sharing so that I can get that copy
Okay.
without everyone watching me do that.
Great, thanks. All right. Any other examples people want to share? I guess I can also hold up what I've been sketching out. This is nothing fancy for the course I'm doing this semester, which which I've done a normal syllabus for, and actually haven't finished the graphical version because I wanted to actually develop it with the students to hopefully get them to give me some better ideas about how to do it. But yeah, so this is a 4th year / grad course. And so in terms of just an overall outline, something that I'm thinking about is if there are basically 3 things that I want to get across. And in this one, I do want to have the course outline. There's basically 4 topics, and I want to have those 4 topics listed there. So solid surfaces, liquid surfaces, making surfaces, characterizing surfaces. So that's sort of the overall scope of the course. The project is something else that's really important. It's something, again, a different kind of assignment that they wouldn't necessarily see otherwise. And then grading down here. So some kind of a grading scheme showing them what the pieces of the course are, and what they're worth. But the project itself, I'm struggling with how I feel like that really lends itself, that assignment lends itself to a graphic, because the assignment consists of creating some kind of an object that communicates science, which is really, really vague in general. It could be a letter to your MHA, it could be a hands-on activity for little kids, it could be a flyer that you post around town, anything like that. And I feel like this kind of an approach of the project going in different directions could be a nice way of structuring the course syllabus as well, where basically in the middle, it's like, who needs to hear about science? Who needs to learn about science? And then radiating that knowledge out in different possible formats. So I think that would be another kind of design feature that I might want to put into that. Chris has shared in the chat the link. And Jane says, how much of an interruption would it cause if an electronic syllabus had a lot of hide reveal content? Students may miss stuff. How would it look printed? Yeah, so if you're making a digital object, you can really do a lot with it. You hover over and something pops up, or you click on it and something else zooms out. I think we all remember Prezi, which has become less popular recently, but it did have that dynamic element where you could explore different areas. There's mind map software that you can actually exploit to do this kind of thing as well. But yeah, how I feel like, and this might not be true, but I've noticed that a lot of students really do have something printed out and they have it in their binder for first year. For upper level courses, it's a mix. Many of them are completely digital now. They show up with a tablet, they take all their notes there. They're able to annotate things that I post. It's all very integrated that way, but all electronic. So I don't know how important the printing is for all classes, but I found for first year, it is essential. They need to have that paper, a lot of them. But I don't know if you have something else to add or about that, Jane. Any other ideas for pictures? Different kind of elements that you want to create, and some of it can be something that actually has to do with your field. Oh, Jane has no volume today. Oh, well, we can hear you through the text, and I'll call out what you say. So what sort of a feature really has to do with your course, you know? So is it I don't know, I think about a sun, and if your course has something to do with the sun, can that be the design element that then captures the different aspects of your course? So I've seen some examples like that, which are really quite fun. You might think in chemistry I could do that with, you know, a molecule or something like that, but that can actually lead to some confusion as well. So drawing of a molecule, particularly for an intro course, can be a very off-putting thing for students, actually, unfortunately. But yeah, could you do something like that to really show, you know, the different areas or different layers? For example, I'm doing surfaces and interfaces this semester. So would I create my syllabus as basically different objects that interface with each other, and what happens at that blending, you know, between the grading and the course outline, and how those fit together. So is it, you know, could I make it as a gas on a liquid on a solid kind of layout for interfaces? If folks don't have other pictures to share, I think what we can end with is a short kind of group contributions to say what do we really think needs to be on the syllabus. So when we think about if we had to only produce a one-page syllabus, graphic or otherwise, what is the key thing? What is one thing that you can't let go of that you really think students want? And again, you can unmute and just speak up, or you can type into the chat. So that one item that you can't not have, that you have to have in your syllabus. Grading and contact info. Okay, contact details. Yeah, evaluation scheme, course calendar, key dates. Yeah, evaluation scheme. For me, that's a biggie. I feel like that's essential. I don't know if anyone's been able to do something without those actual numbers in there. And certainly as I move to ungrading, the numbers themselves don't matter as much, but that's still, that scheme matters. Yeah. So, and key dates is something that really, I think also depends on the course, how much the course is structured like that versus well, for example, the lab course that Chris is describing, where students just rotate through different experiments. So there isn't really a schedule per se, or if there is, it's some kind of a big 2D matrix of who's where when. So Jane says there's 6 elements that the university calendar says must be included in the syllabus. And we were talking about this earlier as well, where you may need a supplementary document as well. So for example, you need to have a statement about accommodations. For me, that's something that I have to have there. That's a must-have for me, that I put in a brief version saying that accommodations are your right, and that what is an accommodation? That's another useful thing to mention, that it's a correction that we make because our methods are lacking, because we aren't yet at a point where our teaching methods or our evaluation methods are universal. And so the accommodations or corrections that we have to make to improve our course delivery. So yeah, so the, oh, thanks, Victoria. Victoria likes that explanation. So yeah, so the 6 elements I think are the grading scheme, the contact information, the accommodations, the academic misconduct, which again, that phrasing can be problematic. Course objectives, okay. So that's another one, and then a 6th one. Maybe you probably have to put your dates for your midterms, right? Yes. Yeah, you have to put those in, or you have to make them known to the students within the first, 2 weeks of class or something like that. Yeah. And so, yeah, so course objectives, for example, are something that I've really dropped from my intro chem graphical syllabus altogether. And I had even dropped from my sort of normal 2-page handout that I did as well, because there are a detailed number of course objectives because it is so content heavy. Wonderful. Thank you, Jane, for that link. I was going to look for it and I realized that I probably wouldn't find it fast enough. So this tells us what the syllabus elements are. And again, it's something where you can see, yes, the contact, the land acknowledgement, that's listed as a required or recommended. And the course information, prerequisites and co-requisites, yes, so that's important to state. It's not something that I've done for, well, I guess for intro there really isn't. And for my upper level courses, I do usually mention, what other courses they need to have had. Required textbooks that you need to purchase, the evaluation scheme, and then accommodations and academic integrity, including a reference to the entry on academic misconduct. Yeah, and then suggestions for many other things that you can put in into the syllabus. One thing that's really nice with the page that Jane sent is number 8, additional policies. The suggested part that they put in there is a wonderful list of equity groups. And so it says, in line with Newfoundland and Labrador Human Rights Act, a statement regarding student equity and the provision of a safe learning environment regardless of race, color, nationality, etc. And actually from that list, I learned, I started including that in my traditional handout. And that was where I learned, for example, to put in disfigurement. That was something that I didn't think of or hadn't thought of before. So there's a number of different things there that are really useful to put in. So yeah, so it sounds like there's some things that are must-haves for everybody, and some things that some folks are finding are important and others are not. So it really varies. So I guess what I'd recommend to folks is, I think we need to wrap up now, is to try just sketching out what your elements are, or put them on Post-its and move them around, or scraps of paper, or put them in some kind of a drawing software with your objects and move them around and try to get a sense for how they fit together, and how the pieces interact. And again, this is a great way to pare down what actually matters in your course and really simplify things. So I see those as nice kind of side effects of this. If you have questions, if you want to follow up with me, again, I'm not a graphics whiz at all, but I can give you my opinion, and my email address is very easy. It's Erika, my first name, ERIKA @lund.ca. And you can certainly contact me then. I'd love to see more examples of graphical syllabi. If you're concerned about pushback, let me know. I can make some suggestions for your particular context on how to make sure that you're meeting the letter of the law, so that someone, perhaps an administrator or supervisor who is, concerned about your teaching methods will not be able to object to this. So I can certainly give you some advice that way. Yes, Stacy says that sounds like a helpful exercise, the paring down, even if you do end up keeping all the other info in other formats, maybe. Yes. Yeah. And I think the example that Chris gave as kind of a bridging point is really nice as well, where you do have to kind of pare things down for that, what's the essential left-hand column, and then you can, I guess, more slowly pare down the other text that's in there over time. Yeah. Well, thank you all for your input. Thanks for coming today. I hope this was useful. And yes, oh, Chris says thanks. Robin says thanks. Thank you. And yeah, do let me know. I think it would be really, really nice to, I guess, to see more examples of this and to know student reactions. Someone who's more knowledgeable about this might be able to develop an assessment tool to see the impact of a graphical syllabus or something like that. I don't know enough about that to do it properly, but that could be something that if people are interested, we could probably get together and find someone who could do that kind of an assessment. So, okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
you.
for organizing.
Thank you very much, Erika, on behalf of everybody in CITL. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to speak to us. And thank you to all the participants for coming to the first webinar of the CITL instructor series for the fall. And I'm just going to, as a final note, I'm going to put the calendar to our subsequent sessions and also other CITL events if anybody would like to explore them as well. And again, thank you very much, Erika.